Well, as soon as you talk about leverage, I start thinking about time. And I start thinking about the fact that we all have the same amount of time unless we know how to create time. So I start thinking about, okay, well, how can I create time? Well, I can create time by not doing things I shouldn't be doing that aren't going along with my mission.
Yeah.
Just eliminating them. What I found out, Rebecca, is the more I can administer, the less I have to work. I'm always looking for the who, like who can I get to work with me that will create a win-win situation where they get to do what they love to do, things that I don't want to do or I'm not good at. And how can I collab with them and create a win-win situation, whether it's buying their time, creating a situation where we both win and we're doing what we want to do. And since I've been able to do that, everything just expands faster. We go further. And we're also helping so many people doing that because you're providing opportunities for people that wouldn't normally have it.
Welcome to another episode of Negotiate Your Best Life. I'm really excited to bring you this amazing human today. He's got an incredible backstory, which people who are super successful usually do. And he is an author, a performance coach, a public speaker, a visionary, a thought leader, and really mostly a connector. What I'm learning, that's his sweet spot. That's his soul mission is to, and I mean soul, SOUL, to get people connected. He's got a best-selling book, Rocket Fuel, Convert Setbacks, Become Unstoppable. And he is one of the top business leaders. So he's really an incredible guy. I wouldn't bring him to you if he weren't. So thank you, Mike C-Roc Ciorrocco, for being here.
Rebecca, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And we had a call like a while back, a little 15-minute connection call, and I love your energy and vibe. So I was happy to come on.
Thank you. Yeah. So one of the things that I thought, and I just, you've accomplished so much, and I want to get into your accomplishments. I'm really fascinated by your backstory because I was listening to how, we have a lot of people who are dealing with narcissistic people or whatever, but they're also dealing with divorce. And one of the things that fascinated me is that you were actually the product of a home where you were going back and forth from the time that you were basically born. You had step parents in there and you had all kinds of stuff going on. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I don't really remember my parents together. And it was just normal for me, right? Because when you're in that environment, you're living in that, it's just like a normal thing. A lot of brokenness, a lot of family members on alcohol, addiction, drugs, depression, anxiety, medication. And then of course the divorce, you have step parents coming into the mix. You got child support custody battles. You got half brothers and sisters and step brothers and sisters and so much chaos, really. And so, I look back at it and I'm so glad I got to go through that because it's like, how can I not be more polished than I would have been being able to go through all that adversity and different chaos, like I said, and come out of it? How can I not be better off because of it? I don't see how that wasn't a great thing that happened in the long run. So I know a lot of people.
I love that you have that mentality. A lot of people would use that as an excuse. Right?
Yeah, I witnessed around 8 years old. I watched my grandmother always have issues with her mental health, but she would always tell a story, and then my grandfather would tell me a story about how her parents were alcoholics, and my grandfather said I should have known from the beginning when I went over her house the first time. Her dad said, handed me a highball and some whiskey or something, and he greeted me that way, and he said I should have known. And she would always tell me, how her parents were alcoholics, and then my aunts and uncles would always tell me, and my mom would tell me what growing up in that household, that's why they're like the way they are. And I was just like, guys, can't you see that you're just basically formulating a story to live out the rest of your life with based on your past?
Yeah.
And if you can do that, why can't you just
tell that at 8 years old?
Yeah, I don't know why. I was just very self-aware and observant. And I said, if that's the case, you should be able to tell the story of why you could be successful and why this is going to make the most wonderful life for you and future family and generations. I mean, you're being built through something and have an opportunity to see. I'm a Christian, and there's a verse in the Bible, James 1 talks about consider it pure joy to go through adversity.
Mm.
And because you have to have, basically your perseverance has to be made through that. Otherwise, your perseverance can lack because you haven't had the experience to develop it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I just, I'm to the point now, Rebecca, where I'm like almost like a freak where things happen that I don't think that are like that don't happen the way I want it to, or there's setbacks or their difficulties. I get excited.
You go,
It's weird.
yes.
Yeah, because I know something amazing is going to come from it because I know how I'm built.
Mm-hmm.
So I get excited now. I don't wait till the thing happens later on that I'm like, oh, well, this is why this happened, and I was able to create this because of it or accomplish this because of it. No, I get a head start. I know I will beat 99.9% of people because I'll get excited now, and I know that when I stay excited, which is a higher emotional tone,
Yes.
everything always works out for me, and I can
Mm-hmm.
achieve more, be more creative. So why not take advantage of a head start? And
Mm-hmm.
so early on, I'll get like, man, I don't like it. Don't get me wrong. I don't like the dark and heaviness of tough times,
Mm-hmm.
but I like what comes after it. And hope is an important thing. And looking at and future casting is an important thing. So for me, why not take advantage of that head start I can get?
So I always talk about living from the future instead of having a default future, which is basically just reliving the past over and over again. And it sounds like that's the space that you live in too, which
Yeah.
is so it's critical to because 90% of our thoughts are going to be the same thoughts we had yesterday or whatever. And so you're just reliving, rehashing. And I love how you talked about vibrational energy. That's like my conversation too. And James is actually my husband's favorite Bible, book in the Bible.
I
So
just told my wife that the other day. I'm like, I've read the Bible before, front to back, studied the, different books of and I said, I think this is my favorite book.
yeah, that's what my husband always says. I just read a book, by the way, which is so good. I'm just having a conversation with. We're just having a conversation over here, two people that everybody gets to listen in on, and that was Mystic Jesus by Marianne Williamson. It is like literally one of the best books I've ever read.
I'll have to
Highly
take a look at it.
recommend. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to take a look at it.
So you had kind of a watershed moment with your dad when your parents were dealing with a custody issue, and your dad was saying that she doesn't have any money, and tell us more about that.
Yeah, when I was 8 years old, my mom was moving on to her third marriage, and I didn't want to move into another man's house, learn another man's rules. And he lived in the country, like probably 20 minutes from a convenience store, 45 minutes from a grocery store. A mall was an hour away. I just tend to be an action kind of guy. I want to be in a city kind of. I want to be in that vibe, and so I didn't want to move down there. So I said, I want to try living with my dad, and he was moving on to his second marriage. And I said, I'll give it a shot, courageous as I was at 8 years old. And my mom let me go without a court fight, without anything. She just let me go. And I moved in with my dad. And during that time, I started to realize that my stepmother was having issues and she didn't like my dad's side of the family. She had conflict with them for whatever her reasons were. Eventually, her and my mom didn't get along. And I had to hear all of it as a kid, right? And I'm witnessing all this stuff, and no kid should ever have to really go through that, but it is what it is. So when I was going through that, eventually there was some emotional abuse and psychological abuse, and I just started to realize like this isn't normal. So I would go to my mom's house on the weekend, and then every other weekend, right? And I would come home, and on the ride home, we were going over these hills in southeastern Pennsylvania. On these roads, they were really hilly, and my stomach would just be like in knots when I'd go back. And I just felt like it wasn't the right thing to do. And I eventually shared what was going on with my mom. And she said, you know what? You don't have to live in that. Are you kidding me? She goes, I'm going to file papers, but if this is the case, I'm going to file papers to get you out of there, but you need to stick to your guns if we do this, because they're going to try to talk you out of it. Mm-hmm. And in life, you need to be able to stick to your guns, because in life, you believe in something, you got to stand your ground, because there's going to be always people and things talking you out of things. And that stuck with me for a long time. So I stuck to my guns. She filed papers, and I came home from school one day after waiting probably weeks and months maybe for those court papers to be delivered to my dad. And I didn't say anything because I didn't know what would happen. And I got home from school one day. My dad had these papers in his hand, and I could feel the tension in the room. And I was probably about 10 years old at this time. And my dad sent me to my room,
Mm.
And I went in there and I'm sure he was shocked by it too. And he's probably in denial about what was actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat in my bedroom waiting for my dad to come back. And my dad was my hero. He was a
Mm.
bricklayer, mason, had his own company, big, thick forearms. You could tell he was a hard worker. His
Oh,
hands were
wow.
rough. He
Yeah.
always had this wad of $100 bills in his pocket. And I always looked up to him for that, you know. And us Italians, we don't usually carry a wallet, we carry wads of money. And he used to show us
Sebastian
$100 bills.
Maniscalco does a bit on that, actually.
Yeah, yeah. He shows I've seen that. He showed the $100 bills to us all the time. And we were like, oh, that's awesome, you know. And so he came back and confronted me and said, hey, it says here you want to live with your mom. What's this all about? And I said, I made a decision. I don't want to be here anymore. And he said, really? And I said, yeah, I really don't want to discuss it because I knew that he was going to try to talk me out of it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, okay, if that's the case. And he takes this wad of $100 bills out of his pocket. He peeled one off and he crumpled it up. And he said, okay, here, you're going to need this when you're living on the streets with your mother one day.
Oh.
And they threw it at me. And I was just like, what did I just do? Like, I thought I set off an atomic bomb. And then it very quickly came to me, like, maybe it's just because I'm stubborn and I don't want to be controlled by anyone. And I said, you know what? I won't need that money. And then, like, after that point, I was 10. I ended up going back to my mom's. But for 30 some years, I drove off of that moment. Like, I'm not going to need that money. And so when things got tough and I needed a little charge, I would remember that moment. Like, I'm not letting him win. And then when things were good, I'm like, I got to take it to the next level because I can't let him win.
Have you ever met somebody, they started off to be the most charming, charismatic person you've ever met in your life. Then they turned out to be your worst nightmare. And then when you go to negotiate with them, they're a living hell. Well, I developed something called the SLAY method of negotiating with narcissists, and it has helped tens of thousands of people in more than 150 countries win, go from feeling drained and defeated to getting the outcomes they want. And the reason why it works is because I spent more than 20 years studying narcissism as a trial attorney, and now I'm here to help you win too, and also take your suffering and turn it into your superpower. Take your pain and turn it into profit, peace, and purpose as a highly specialized high conflict negotiation coach. If you want to learn how to do it, then just go to RebeccaZung.com/apply and I will show you how.
You know, and I don't know if that's healthy. I know it worked.
Well, I mean, I think it was two things. It was your mom saying, don't change your mind. Like, don't allow somebody to control you. Don't allow somebody else to be in your head. And then it was also this sort of put down, like, oh, you're going to end up on the street or whatever. And you're like, okay, never mind. That's not me. Not today. Not happening. So I
Yeah.
kind of think it was like two major lessons that you got from that.
Yeah. Well, one thing I learned is that it's a kind of a toxic fuel. Okay. And then
Yeah.
as I developed myself and as I got into my 40s and I started doing self-assessment and really working on myself and finding out who I am, I started to refine myself,
Mm-hmm.
take myself to another level spiritually.
Yeah.
And when I started to realize that, I was like, you know what? That fuel doesn't work in this engine anymore. I need a
No,
higher octane
that's
fuel
so
now.
good. I love that term toxic fuel because I lived on that for a long time too, which I don't anymore. But when you really learn the energy of abundance and love and passion and joy, that takes you so much further.
Well, your engine gets refined and then you need a higher octane fuel. And then I started searching, okay, what's that higher octane fuel? And a couple things came to mind. Number one was I gotta focus on the future and cause and create a future.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll pull me forward faster and
Yeah.
cleaner. And then the other thing was I gotta make it about other people.
Yes.
Because like you can make it about other people and blame people for your circumstances,
Right.
or you can make it about other people and serve. And when I
Yeah.
became more of a servant and helping other people, making it about other people, and what can I provide other people, everything just up leveled. And I became a more valuable person.
Mm-hmm.
And everything I did started to become more valuable, which allowed me to make more money, help more people, employ more people, help other people change their lives and their trajectory of their families.
So good. I mean, when you start to not see relationships as transactional, right? And it's like, how can I serve? Lead with that giving hand. And then I always used to say, and I still say, but as a lawyer, I used to always say, do the right thing for the client and the universe will take care of me. So if the right thing is to, have this case settle or whatever, and that means that less money from this client, that's totally fine because others will be around, more will come. And it's never not served me, even in my company now, which I have a pretty big team now for my digital courses, my certifications, and my trainings. I always say this is not about the sale. This is about transforming lives. This is about how can you make an impact. So I love that. So good. And like attracts like, right? That's how our energies ended up attracting into each other's world.
Yeah, well, when I started doing this, I noticed my environment changed. Like the people that I was around, they used to cause me a lot of anxiety
Yeah.
and conflict and
Mm-hmm.
chaos. I realized that started to dwindle. And
Yeah.
then the people that are in my environment now are actually impact driven people that want to serve. And the thing is that I really never knew that was a reality. I thought I've kind of gave up on human beings to the point that they could be good people. It was just like everybody's out for themselves and everybody thinks that somebody's trying to screw them. And
Mm-hmm.
usually when people think people are trying to screw them, it's because they're the ones trying to screw other people.
100%. It's the
And
world is
so
a
I
mirror to
started I
you. The world
started
is your
cleaning up
mirror.
my environment, and then everything started to be less stress, less anxiety,
Yeah,
and it just is it's a much more wonderful life.
totally. So, I mean, you kind of went into this a little bit, but I was curious to know about the times that maybe you had emotional blind spots, moments where maybe you didn't see your role in a setback that you had and how you overcame that.
Yeah, I mean, I think all of us go through it early on in our lives where we don't really take responsibility for things, right? We don't take understand the fact that we are the ones that cause and create our future.
Mm-hmm.
And that starts with your
And our
thoughts.
present.
Yeah, well, it starts with our thoughts, our words, our actions, and the people we keep around us.
Mm-hmm.
And we have control over that.
Yeah.
So if you start thinking better, you're just going to start speaking better, you're going to start doing better, and you're going to start hanging around with better people. And so that all starts, though, the course starts with, what do I want in life? Who do I want to be? What do I want to be doing? Who do I want to be doing it with? Where do I want to be doing it? And getting really clear on that. And then making decisions with your thoughts, words, actions, and
So
environment that align with that clear picture.
So
But when you don't have that clear picture, all your thoughts, words, actions, and environment you keep are dictated by something else, whether it's the news, social media, people in your environment, whatever. And then you start living a purpose or a why of someone else's. And then you get resentful, you get anxious, you get chaos. And so I just became really hyper aware of that. And now it's like, once you know that you can control it by getting a clear picture of what you want, everything starts to fall into place.
How has your personal philosophy of rocket fuel impacted the people in your life?
Yeah, so I started when I figured this out, this rocket fuel law. Like, we all have a choice. We can store everything that comes our way in our tank or our trunk. Most people keep it in their trunk and it slows them down and weighs them down, or even stops them, right? Or you can store it in your tank and use it as rocket fuel to become unstoppable.
Oh, I love that analogy. I've never heard that before.
And that's what I wrote the book about. This book that you mentioned earlier, Rocket Fuel.
Yeah, but
right?
I love that analogy. I've never heard anyone say that other than you before. That's good.
When you figure something out, you become evangelistic about it, and you start running your mouth, right? You're thinking it, now you're saying it, right? That's the first steps. People resent you when you're just saying it. So I was saying it everywhere. I was promoting it. I was talking about it on podcasts. I've been on over 1,100 podcasts as a guest. Social media content I was just blasting it everywhere. But when those closest to you only hear you talking about it, seeing it everywhere, and you're living in their environment all the time, they become resentful, because what it does is it really puts a spotlight on their shortcomings.
Well, they either become resentful or they get better, right? They go with you with it.
Yeah, but most of the time it's just resentful, because there's another step that you have to take. Remember, I was talking about your thoughts, words, actions, the environment you keep. Well, my thoughts were there, my words were there, but the other two, my actions and the people I hung around, didn't align with that vision and what I was talking about. Then I started realizing, wait a minute. Okay. So now to really get results, because I was banging my head against the wall, like, why aren't they getting it? Like, I was banging my head against the wall with it. And I was just like, I got to figure something else out. Well, then I started to figure out, well, I need to be a living demonstration of what I'm thinking and what I'm talking about. That's the action. What am I doing? That's the third step. What am I doing? If I'm not doing what I'm saying and thinking, that doesn't work. It's out of alignment, and people recognize that. So then I started doing what I was thinking and saying, and then I became a living demonstration of that. And then also I had to pay attention. Who am I hanging around that doesn't align with what I'm saying, thinking, doing? I got to change that. So I started changing my environment, and then those around me started to make sense to them. They didn't feel like they were getting preached to, and it made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, so good. I often use the analogy of a radio station. I don't know if anybody even listens to the radio anymore. Like, we did when we were growing up, but and the way I look at it is, whatever your frequency is, that's what you're tuned into, and that's what you're going to get. So you can't be tuned into 88.7 and expect 107.3 to be showing up in your on your speakers, right? In your life. You got to be tuned into the higher frequency in order to get there. And so, we are tuning forks basically for the environment, for everything in our lives. So I love the way that you just described that. It seems like every celebrity has access to GLP-1s these days, but what about the rest of us? Now you don't need to be rich or famous to access personalized, tailored weight loss solutions just for you. Through Hers, you can take control of your health. Hers is changing women's healthcare by providing access to holistic weight loss solutions, including GLP-1 treatments with the same active ingredients as Ozempic and Wegovy, oral medication kits, and more. You'll connect with a medical provider who will develop a plan based on your needs. And if prescribed, your medication is included as part of a doctor-designed weight loss program, complete with ongoing care, online support, all at no additional cost. Plans start at just $199 a month with a 12-month subscription, paid up front, and your treatment ships directly to your door. So if you've been struggling with weight loss and you want to find the right solution just for you, start your free online visit today at forhers.com/negotiate. That's forhers.com/negotiate for your personalized weight loss treatment options. Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded programs are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required, restrictions apply. Wegovy and Ozempic are not compounded. You're known for your strength and your resilience and taking everything and turning it into a lesson, which I think is amazing. But can you talk about a vulnerability or a fear that you've had to overcome, and how did facing that make you a better leader?
Well, there's been many, but I think the biggest thing for me was when I started making real money, and I had a big business that went into well into the 8 figures, and I started to having the house and the cars and things, and my family started getting accustomed to a certain lifestyle. And I was in the mortgage business. I had a large operation from Delaware to Miami, 50 some employees, a lot of weight and responsibility comes with that. And when that started to become a thing where I felt trapped because of the money, and I didn't really like what I was doing. And I noticed that there was going to be another real estate cycle where the rates would go up and business would be affected and all these things. And it started not aligning with my thoughts and words and actions. And I got a fear that came to me like, oh my gosh, we're accustomed to all this, and I got to maintain this lifestyle for my family, what they expect. But I don't want to do this anymore. And so when I'm in my 40s at this point, and I'm like, I got to figure something out here. I got to figure out to do something, but to still be able to provide this lifestyle. So this thought went through my head like, oh man, it's going to be permanent. We're not going to be able to eat at the places we eat, travel to the places we travel, live where we live. And all these things started
to which you've become accustomed.
Yeah. And it messed with me for a little bit. And then I started to realize, wait a minute, these things that we have aren't necessities. We don't have to have these things. We can survive without them as long as we have each other. And I started to really tap into God and my relationship with Jesus, because that was the only thing I knew would not go away. People will leave you. People will disappoint you, let you down. Money will go away, material things. Look what's going on in your hometown right now. I mean, things that it's like somebody was saying, I think it was, I forget who said it's a great equalizer. I saw people on social media walking around in $2,000 shoes, carrying a bag and evacuating down the street because they couldn't drive their car.
They had nothing.
And I'm like, all that stuff, what does it mean now?
Yeah.
Right. So I started realizing those things, starting to think about that. And I also started thinking about, you know what? I came into this world butt naked, not being able to speak, no connections, no experiences, and I made it this far.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if I had to go back now and I was butt naked again. Don't envision that. Okay. I was butt naked. I could speak.
I was envisioning a baby.
Yeah, now I can speak. No, I have a mustache and beard and everything. So but when I go back to that now, the worst case scenario, right? But I can speak, I can communicate, I have experience, I have wisdom, knowledge, I have connections. How far can I go now if I had to start at that point? And that's the worst case scenario. Once I realized that, I'm like, oh, I got this. So, but that was a fear that went through and still creeps up sometimes. And I have to just keep reminding myself, like, what's the worst case scenario, you know?
Yeah, totally. And you know, when you do that, it takes the power out of it. It takes the power out of the fear. It's
Yeah.
like, well, okay, worst case scenario happens. I'm good.
Well, the other thing I figured out too, a funny thing with fear is that it'll chase you if you run from it.
Mm.
But if you lean into it, it runs from you.
Oh my goodness, that's so good. You know, I always say that narcissists are way more afraid of you than you are of them. And it's really just, you know, all a front. And I always say it's sort of like Glinda the Good Witch. You know how Glinda the Good Witch in The Wizard of Oz, when the Wicked Witch came around, she said, go away, you have no power here.
Yeah.
And the Wicked Witch was like shrinking away from her. It's because she like knew who she was. She was grounded, good, totally
Yep.
in her zone.
Yep.
And so everybody else was cowering. So that's what they got to see was fear. But Glinda, she was like, no,
Yeah.
please, lady, I have no time for you.
Those are great lessons. When we're younger, we don't realize that those lessons are being portrayed in the film.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
as you get
And the
older, you're
wizard
like,
is
oh yeah, look
basically
at
a
that.
narcissist, you know, like with this big, you know, all the stuff around him, but behind the curtain, it's like this feeble little scared person.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and you always had it. You always have it. You always have what it takes inside of you. I want to ask you about your philosophy of leverage. I know you've probably negotiated a lot in your career, but you know, leverage is also, while it's the key to negotiation, it's also you can leverage personal growth, you know, your identity, your life. So what's your concept of leverage?
Well, you know, as soon as you talk about leverage, I start thinking about time. And I start thinking about the fact that we all have the same amount of time unless we know how to create time. And so I start thinking about, okay, well, how can I create time? Well, I can create time by not doing things I shouldn't be doing that aren't going along with my mission.
Yeah.
Just eliminating them.
Yeah.
I can also administer. A lot of people use the word delegate, but I like administer better. What I found out, Rebecca, is the more I can administer, the less I have to work. So, you know, you think about the president and they talk about his administration or her administration, right? Administration. Well, that's their basically people that they've leveraged their time and their skills and their knowledge and wisdom to advance. So for me, you know, I once I learned this and anything new that I start, I'm always looking for the who, like who can I get
Oh, that's so good.
to work with me that will create a win-win situation where they get to do what they love to do, what they're good at, things that I don't want to do or I'm not good at. And how can I, you know, collab with them and create a win-win situation, whether it's buying their time, creating a situation where we both win and we're doing what we want to do. And since I've been able to do that, everything just expands faster. We go further. And we're also helping so many people doing that because you're providing opportunities for people that wouldn't normally have it. And so that's what comes to mind with leverage. For me, obviously, you can leverage your brand. Once you build a brand, you can leverage your platforms.
I love leveraging time, though. That's so good. That's such a great answer. I'm sure you've dealt with high conflict situations or personalities in the past. Nobody's immune to that. What have you found didn't work, and what did you find did?
Well, what I found work was get rid of what doesn't work is to fight,
yeah,
and try to prove a point and proving a point and being right over being successful.
Yeah.
So I'd rather get rid of the problem as fast as possible.
Yeah.
So like, let's say it's a client, we all have clients that are, not aligned with the way we operate.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really want to be around. We find that out at some point, whether it's before we sell them an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
or once they get on and you start to see the signs and the red flags.
Yeah.
So for me, it's identifying that and confronting it as fast as possible. The
Mm-hmm.
longer you take to confront something needs to be confronted, the more pressure builds up, and we're all forced to confront.
Oh, you're just delaying the inevitable and making
Yeah,
it worse.
yeah, we're all forced to confront. So if you're afraid to confront or of confrontation, you don't want to do it at the end of the cycle. You'd rather do it earlier on.
Yeah.
So what I found was get rid of the problem. What do we got to do to get rid of the problem? So I know you're, an attorney and you have attorney background. For me, I don't want to deal with attorneys. I
Yeah.
don't even want to get to that point.
Of course
So
not. Of course you
what
don't.
do we got to do to get rid of the problem?
Yeah.
Because it's going to cost us a lot less time or money first, time second, stress, anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and productivity, creativity, all these things. So what's worked is let's confront, what do we got to do to get rid of the problem? And then let's cut our losses and move on because it's going to expand us way bigger and faster.
And you're giving them narcissistic supply and whatever else, right? Which is why do that?
I would rather say, yeah, no, you know what? You're right. Let me correct this. Even though I know maybe I'm right, I don't have the ego thing right now where I need to prove to anybody that I'm right. Being right doesn't matter. It really doesn't. Human beings align
They're
being
never going to
right.
acknowledge that you're right anyway.
Well, no, but
You're
here's the
never going to
thing.
get them to go, oh, you know what? Yeah, I see.
No, it's like arguing about politics or something.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. People align survival with being right.
Mm-hmm.
The more right you are, the more you're going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's not correct. It's not going to help you.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I don't align being right with being, surviving.
Mm-hmm.
I align how can I get to the easiest path in a situation?
Right.
And so that's survival. And beyond surviving is thriving.
Thriving.
So that's the way I look at it.
I'll admit it, I'm that person. I'm the one the night before a birthday, an anniversary, or any kind of special occasion, I'm frantically searching the aisles for the right card and one that doesn't seem kind of corny or cringeworthy. You know the struggle, right? But then I found Moonpig. It's a total game changer. They have tons of adorable, funny, even heartfelt designs ready to go. And you can even personalize them, which is super cool. You can even upload your favorite photos or tweak the text to make it uniquely you. And they'll even suggest clever messages if you're feeling stuck. Oh, and no more forgetting birthdays or scrambling for addresses. Moonpig lets you save everything in one place and even sends you reminders. Plus, they've got the opportunity to upload gift cards from all your favorite places like Sephora or Starbucks, so you can really nail that perfect gift vibe. Once you've designed your card, they'll even mail it for you, or if you want to hand deliver it, they'll send it to you with a cool envelope. So guess what? This is your chance. Your first card is totally free. Just use the code FREE and go to moonpig.com/US/negotiate. Seriously, stop stressing and start impressing. Make someone's day with Moonpig. Try it right now. Love it. That's so good. If you could rewrite any chapter of your journey, would you? Number one. And number two, what would it be?
I think there's an ability to rewrite things, and we talked about this earlier, where you don't actually have a time machine, you go back and change things, but you change your perception and the story you create on those things, which changes history because the outcome gets changed.
That's a great answer.
So that's the way I look at it. I mean, if I want to change anything, I change the way I look at it.
Like Wayne Dyer said, change the way you look at things and the things you look at change.
Yeah. So for me, I don't think I need to think about changing anything from my past because it was all opportunities to learn. All the failures that people could say were failures were opportunities to gather data to become a more equipped individual. And that's anytime if I look at that question, I would say, okay, well, what could I look at differently?
Yeah. There's another expression that goes along with what you've been saying, which is you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like get new people.
Exactly.
um, so if it's 20 years from now, you're sitting back with your grandchildren or whatever you're doing at that point, what do you want to be reflecting on as the impact that your life had or what's happened in your life? What do you want to say is your legacy at that point?
Well, yeah. So I would be looking at the present time at that time and just enjoying and taking it all in, and then still causing and creating and trying to work, because I don't want everyone to stop working. I think people stop working, they start dying.
Yeah, I agree.
But if somebody were to say like, what's your intention? My intention from now until 20 years from now is to make sure that anybody I come in contact with that I have in my environment, I elevate them in some way. So
Mm-hmm.
I bring that energy, that intention, so that when I'm done with that person, from that encounter or from that relationship, that they're just better off in some form or fashion.
Do you
And
have like a mantra that you have that kind of is in your head all the time? Like,
yeah,
I'm unstoppable or whatever it would be.
yeah, no, I think it's really, which my mission has tied to my mission, which is all people are unstoppable to living the life of their dreams,
Mm.
because we're programmed not to believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it's intentionally, some of it's unintentionally. I think the people that care about us, it's unintentional.
Mm-hmm.
They're just reflecting upon their experiences and their beliefs, and then they project that out onto you.
Mm-hmm.
We're also, we're in a capitalistic society, and it's a lot about money and whatever can get them to the next profit mile marker. And so we're programmed to, and there's a lot of people that want to be in power and control people. And so from the media, from social media to corporations, we're all being pushed in a direction where they want us to be.
Yeah.
And I just never want to be a puppet.
No, me either.
So
I
I'd
would
rather be
feel
the
unemployable.
yeah, I'd rather be the master of my life and my direction and
Yes.
journey. And so, yeah.
Yeah. So, what's a question that you wish somebody would have asked you in the past that would allow you to share a piece of your story or a philosophy that you've never discussed before?
Huh. Yeah, I've never really pondered that question. Uh, I don't know. I don't know what it would be. I mean, I pretty much share things before even people ask, or if they ask something, I'll share whatever I think needs to be shared.
Yeah.
So I think I'm pretty clear on that.
Yeah.
I'm really intentional with that. So I never really pondered the question that should be asked. Maybe it's that, that question about being clear on what you want and who you want to be.
Yeah.
And how do I do that? Like somebody could ask, like, how do I really do that? And I'm prepared to do what you say,
Mm.
because so many people want to ask a question and then you give them an answer and they're not willing to do it.
Do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it.
Yeah, if I give advice to someone and they ask and they take the initiative to ask, I'd hope that they would. They're asking me for a reason, because they view me in a certain esteem, and they would want to take that action and implement it.
Yeah.
I say this to my son all the time. I'm like, gosh, man, I wish you would just listen to me and stop fighting me.
Oh,
Like, I
I
know the
know.
answers.
He's, you plant corn, you get corn, Mike. You know that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I know what I'm talking about, but you want to argue with me about these things, and
He's gonna have
if
to.
you would just do it, you would see what I'm talking about.
I know, but he's gonna have his own journey in life.
Yeah.
Like Khalil Gibran says that we're just the arrows for them for the bow, and God is the archer, and we're
Yeah.
just the arrows, and they go and they're on their own journey and their own path.
Yeah, they got to pick their own targets, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, where can people learn more about you, what you're up to, how they can connect with you, how they can be in your world?
So I've dedicated the rest of my life at this point to helping other people that have missions, being able to get them out there further, faster, with some of the mistakes that I've learned, lessons I've learned, and the network that I've built with my team, that I can't utilize myself to the fullest, capacity and potential. So I want to make sure that I use it and introduce other people to the resources that I have. And so, we've created that one brand. That one brand, we've helped people get booked on top podcasts. We help people start their podcast to get their message out and manage their podcast for them. And then I'm just focused on being a living demonstration on everything that I think and say so that people can see what's possible. And I keep telling myself, like, let me see how far I can take this thing. So anybody that wants to know more, wants to go deeper, can go to my Instagram account at Mikey C-Roc on Instagram. And our company is that the number one agency.com.
Very good. Go check him out. Get a copy of his book too. Go check out his book and follow him on Instagram. Check out his website, his resources. I mean, I think you guys can just tell that just by being in his space, your energy is lifted, right? So, and that's what it's all about. So, thank you, Mike C-Roc. I really loved our conversation. I feel like we're so
Thank you.
aligned on so many things. And I can't wait to share you with the world.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Appreciate your time and having me.
Thank you.